Hey, welcome back to Beyond Tourism. And today we're talking about what we feel like are the biggest misconceptions that YouTubers who talk about moving abroad have kind of led everybody to believe online. There's plenty of clickbait titles on there like live abroad for $1,000 a month and you don't have to be wealthy to live abroad. And there's probably some truth in what they're saying, but we feel like there are a lot of misleading pieces of content on there.
Right. They're just showing you this beautiful, polished version of, oh, look at me, I live in a villa in Italy, instead of giving you the real details like, are you legally allowed to work there? How does your visa work? How long are you allowed to be there? How do we know?
Yeah. I'm Frankie,
And I'm Jesse.
and we lived abroad for about 5 years. And so we're very familiar with all of the red tape and bureaucracy that comes with moving abroad. That I don't think gets all of the attention that it should for somebody who's considering moving overseas.
Right. So, like Frankie said, we lived abroad for about 5 years, and we've made our way back to the U.S.
And we're hoping to move back overseas, and there's a lot of reasons that we'll go through in our content from here on out. But this time when we're thinking about moving abroad, we're not looking at something temporary. We don't want to just be tied down to a specific work visa like we've had in the past. We want long-term sustainable life overseas in a country of our choice.
Right. And the big problem that we're seeing right now is on the content online is it's for either retirees who, there's a lot of visas that exist for them, and that's great, but you have to hit a certain age or money requirement, or it's for somebody in their 20s who is just okay couch surfing and living off of ramen, and not a lot of content for people like us.
Yeah, and we've done the couch surfing and the bare bones hostels, all of that kind of stuff to travel. But now we're looking at how do we actually sustainably move ourselves overseas as people in our 30s who are still going to be concerned with income, saving for retirement. We are not ready for or not ready to qualify for any of these retirement visas. So our path is going to be quite different.
And we believe this path is very possible.
Yeah, it does require more than just a plane ticket.
Right. And so today we're breaking down the 4 biggest misconceptions about moving overseas.
Yeah, and hopefully covering a lot of what the content out there seems to leave out. And no guarantees that it is fascinating, but I think it is required for anybody who's considering moving out of the country.
Right, because the dream is not a lie. It's
Right.
very possible.
Absolutely, and then we've done it. But the lie is that it's easy to do this.
Misconception number 1, you can just move to another country. And the answer to that is no, you cannot do that.
Yeah, exactly. So being able to visit somewhere is not the same as immigrating, which is what we're hoping to do. We're not looking for a remote year type situation or something short term.
Right, and we found a lot of countries online that will do 30 to 90 day visas or even a year, but it depends on where you're coming from, where you're going, and different regulations like that.
Yeah, and I suppose it also is important to say that the way that we define moving abroad is for long term. We are not looking for just a year long. We're looking to really pick up our lives and move somewhere that aligns with our values and our quality of life.
And long term, that type of long term requires permission.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's where one of the biggest misconceptions that we feel like comes up in this content is where people say, well, you can just buy a home overseas. And that may be true, but unfortunately that doesn't mean that you can stay there long term. And so I have followed so many of these accounts and looked into all of these videos of buying a house in Italy because we're both Italian and that would be fantastic to just move to Italy. But unfortunately, what you find out in a lot of these videos halfway through is that these are either vacation rentals where they only plan on being there for about 6 months of the year, which is also a choice, or that they're married. One of the people in the videos is married to an Italian citizen, in which case, yes, they are then able to spend the full year for as many years as they want in that country. But misleading.
And yeah, very misleading. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are single and in the market for a European or an Asian spouse, more power to you. But for everybody else,
yeah, renting or just having property does not guarantee you the right to legally live there and not run into any problems. And so we are hoping to avoid any situation that disrupts our time abroad. We don't want to run into that.
Yeah. And so the misleading part isn't this beautiful life abroad. The misleading part, excuse me.
I'm glad you did that right into the mic, sorry. The misleading part is that a lot of content online is presenting what are temporary situations as though they are long-term living arrangements. And that isn't how we define living overseas.
Yeah. And so once you realize that first problem, your next problem is
misconception number 2.
Yeah. Misconception number 2 is that you can just qualify for whatever visa that you want.
Yeah. And I think that this is where a lot of YouTubers tend to get a little bit vague
and say things like, move to Spain, or Portugal is perfect for expats.
Yeah. And those things might be true, but what visa are you using? How are you legally allowed to live there, work there, and have an uninterrupted time in that country?
Right. And they range from student visas, work visas, retirement visas, and even visas by investment.
Right. So it's not as simple as just picking from a list of visas. You do have to meet all of the qualifications and the requirements that are specific to that visa. For example, when we lived in South Korea, we were there for a specific E2 visa, which allowed us to work in the country. But there were even some restrictions with this.
Right. We were legally tied to that job. So we couldn't do side work or, tutoring on the side or things like that.
Yeah, bartending, anything else. So we didn't make the best money as teachers there. We used it as travel. We loved being there, but we were not able to make anything outside of that sponsored role because we were tied to that. So anything bartending, like you said, tutoring, would have been in breach of that sponsorship.
Right. And so another one is retirement visas, and those are great on paper, but they are for specific age ranges and even sometimes monetary ranges for those people as well.
Yeah. And the other one I think that was super popular in the past were these digital nomad visas, or some of these golden, I think some countries may even call them elective visas. They're becoming a little bit less frequently. I know Portugal rolled one of theirs back, I think, a year or two ago. So they're becoming a little bit further and fewer between. But even then, they do require that you're able to show proof of a specific income. You do need to have your own private insurance, background checks. All of those things are requirements for a lot of those types of visas.
Right. Investment visas are another one, but those often come with a pretty substantial investment into that, whether it's real estate or business. I think while we're talking about Spain, I think theirs was about 400,000 euro. Yeah. So it's not cheap.
No. I mean, if you have that, you should be making videos so we can follow you. But we are not in that position. And I know one that we also had talked about was Cambodia, which does allow you the ability to invest in the country to gain either permanent residency or citizenship. But there's really fine print there too, because you're not, as a foreigner, able to legally own any housing, if it includes a first-story building.
Right.
So there's all of these little types of
nuances
that change with each of these visas.
Right. Another one that we looked at was Italy. As Frankie mentioned, we were both
Italian.
Our families are Italian. But they've capped that now at grandparents and great-grandparents,
yes.
So that you don't apply if you're a certain generation removed.
Right. So you know, there are so many things to consider. They're all very dependent on each individual country too. One digital nomad visa in one country is not going to be the same as another country. So you really have to read the fine print. This is where this part of the conversation gets tricky, because you have to see it's not just about picking a country and making it fit the visa requirements.
Right. You've got to start asking yourself some real questions. Do you qualify for a specific visa? Can you maintain it? Does it allow you to work? Can your spouse come with you? Can your dog come with you? All kind of things like that.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of advice would be just to do your due diligence frequently. So, 3 years ago, we had said, well, we're going to pursue the Italian citizenship by descent visa. And we kind of hemmed and hawed and spent all of this time getting our paperwork together. And lo and behold, in the middle of this process, I think it was a few months ago at this point, they changed the requirements. So these things are changing all the time, and it could be the financial components that you need to meet, thresholds, descent timeline. So these things are always changing. And I think our biggest recommendation, something we're going to have to follow as well, is making sure that once we find a visa we qualify for, let's make sure we stay on top of it to get it to, get it through the, what's the phrase? I'm quite bad at this. Get it over the finish line, basically. Okay.
Misconception number 3, that working remote means you are legally allowed to just work from anywhere.
Yeah. And this did used to be true, I think, for the early digital nomads, but it's not something that you should assume anymore.
Right. Maybe during COVID, or when these things really started to get more and more popular, but a lot of content creators seem to simply apply that working remote means you can just pick up and go wherever you want.
And I think it's misleading, because the type of remote roles that we have, even if you work at a global company, doesn't mean that it's work from anywhere. So remote does not equal work from anywhere.
Right. And there's a couple issues here, like your employer needs to allow you to work from a different country. First of all, that country that you're going to needs to allow you to work as a citizen of another country. And there's a lot of tax implications there that people don't seem to know about or mention.
Yeah, they're definitely grazing over some of those finer tax and financial details. But I think, the issue with, we're not talking about content creators, because that is truthfully a work from anywhere type of job. We're talking about people who have remote jobs that are based in Canada, the United States, countries like this. Those companies now will need to think about the employment law, taxes, like you mentioned, data security. A lot of these companies do not want you taking their equipment, their sensitive information, potentially to a different country. Things that will change that we've noticed in reading our company's handbooks are benefits, insurance. If you being in a separate country will create any kind of legal obligations for them, which changes depending on the country. It's a lot different to maybe move to Italy than it would be to move to China. What does that look like for the company? They have to take all of these things into account. And so I think what we found is most of these companies do not want to open this bureaucratic can of worms.
Right. And we're also seeing more and more on job websites that it's saying this is a remote position, but US based only, right? So they mean you can work from the coffee shop down the street or your living room or whatever, but not Albania or wherever.
Or a beach or, exactly.
So, and maybe you've got seniority at your company and you could ask, but that's also going to open up a new set of issues.
Yeah. And I would caution anybody who thinks that, just because it can change the way that your company and management sees your long-term investment in their company. So I always would just advise caution. It's something I'm not comfortable with. And I think something we probably should mention, we are aware of this. A lot of people are also touting that you can get around this and there's a loophole. It's not legal, so I will say that. where you can just use a really high quality VPN. Neither of us can condone it. No, our companies that we work for did not tell us to say that, but I am a terrible liar, and God forbid I were to be found out, which would happen immediately because I can't lie. It's really just not worth losing my position in this economy at this point. So can't condone that, but we'll acknowledge that it is an option.
Another video coming about how she can't even tell little white lies.
Okay, well, anyhow. So let's say that you are one of the lucky ones whose job allows you to take your work somewhere, which is possible.
Right. Another consideration that people don't think about is that a lower cost of living could also mean lower salary. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you're taxed 1 for 1 on every dollar twice, but just because, oh, my rent's cheaper now, that's great, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm making more money.
Yeah. And we've run into a situation like this. It wasn't based on remote work, but it's not something that it's not a position you ever want to find yourself in. And this is not just from something we read online. We dealt with this in person when we lived in the Czech Republic. And it was a good example of what happens when you love the country, but you can't actually keep up with the cost of living. So maybe you can tell them about the Czech Republic.
Right, we were teaching, and the consistent pay that you expect in the US or Canada or even in Asian countries was a bit more laxed, right? So again, we loved it there. We loved the positive benefits of the more laxed culture, but when it came to trying to make sure we can pay our rent on time and dealing with different immigration issues in a language that we didn't speak very well yet, made things a bit more difficult.
Yeah, and you don't want to run into a situation like that. So it can turn your living abroad experience into what becomes survival mode. So I think it's just something I would caution people against, and just say that remote work is not equal to working from anywhere. That's the first thing. And then secondly, if your company is able to do that and willing to do that, just make sure that if they're offering you this perk or this benefit to bring your job with you at a lowered salary, that you are able to make ends meet when you're there.
Right. And I mean, honestly, anybody that says like, just do this, or you can bring your job anywhere without knowing the finer details or explaining those, is definitely a red flag.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of content creators who are conflating, like kind of combining these things, because they're talking about you can work remotely, but really what they're talking about, what they're referring to, I think when they say that often, is, well, they're creating content.
Right. We're selling courses.
Teaching online.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with those things.
No, and I think you can do them, but it does take a certain personality. If you're going to chase down your own clients for tutoring, you do need to be very, very proactive in finding a way to make ends meet. So it doesn't come simply, and we're not saying that's impossible.
Right. It's not impossible. It definitely takes some planning though. And so my only question shouldn't be, can I afford the rent and some groceries?
Yeah, I agree.
Misconception number 4, you can live in any country for X amount of dollars.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that some of these numbers that you see in the YouTube titles, they may be true. We've traveled to a significant amount of Southeast Asian countries where that could be viable, it could be possible.
Right. There are absolutely places where your housing and transportation and food, and not even grocery store food, but dining out, can be significantly cheaper than they are in the West.
Yeah, but I do want to call out, I think a cheap month is not the same thing as a sustainable life. So spending 1 or 2 months somewhere is not the same as showing, what does it look like for your permanent life? What does that look like when you're not a tourist? We've seen so many, we are content watchers of all of this, like travel abroad or move abroad content. And I feel like we've seen a lot of videos that show the bare bones, especially things like, oh, how I spent $400 a month in Vietnam, but it doesn't really explain a full picture of their expenses. And They're just showing what life might look like if you just ate pho or ramen for
Right.
every meal, or you only ate one meal a day.
Right.
Is it possible? Probably.
But they're not showing you visa fees, health insurance, taxes, flights home, actually living there rather than just being a tourist.
Furnishing, yeah,
Right.
just everything you don't really think about setting up. It's even expensive to move in the States, like to move cities in the States. So think about now you're in a new country. But I think I spent $1,500 this month is very different than saying here's what an actual cost of living looks like over a long-term period when you're not a tourist. And so there's nothing wrong with these videos. I think it's good to see the differences in in what things cost, but I don't think that they're always as direct as they should be, and it should be part of the story. So personally, we do not want to move abroad with what we call a break-even number, where we are technically living abroad, but then that's it. We're just stuck in our house and we are never doing anything. We want to have a lifestyle overseas that's slower paced, but it doesn't rely on,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I agree.
continue, sorry.
I mean, these like low monthly budgets that you see don't give you the full picture of, maybe it is possible, but is it realistic for you? Is this $1,200? Does it mean that I can never travel or go out or experience the pub down the street because I'm scrimping and saving and doing all these things to make this work?
Yeah, I think that's the key. We are not looking to go blow money, but we're also not hoping to move overseas just to be frugal and not really enjoy the perks that are causing us to want to live overseas in the first place.
We can do that here.
Exactly. So we're not looking for the lowest possible number. So when we see things like this, we really try to be discerning, and we approach them with I think, healthy skepticism. We want to build towards an honest number that works for us, what we want to have in savings, and we want to see what the cost of living looks like so that we can build towards that.
Right. And so the lie here is not that these inter-country can be affordable. It's that this treating the cheapest possible month that you can come up with is the same as being there.
Right. It's almost like a challenge at that point. Like, how low of a number could you live on? But that's not what we see as a goalpost for setting up a permanent life overseas.
That's not fun.
No. So after talking about all these misconceptions and a healthy dose of skepticism towards all these YouTube move abroad content creators, there's one final question, and are we saying you should not move abroad?
No, absolutely not. Moving abroad changed our lives. It changed our perspective. It introduced us to people who we still are friends with and keep in contact with. And we would absolutely do it again.
Yeah. And in fact, that's the plan. We are doing it again.
But this time we're approaching it more long-term and not as this just kind of temporary pause from, we got to get back to the States and go back to our real life.
Yeah. I think when we were teaching overseas, we always thought, well, we'll come back. There's always a plan to come back, but this time is different. We've been back now for 5 years, which is crazy to say. And this time we're building a plan that accounts for residency, employment, income, taxes, of course, healthcare, emergencies, savings. We are not looking to, and nor are we able to, retire right now. So we have to have a different plan forward, but still are looking to do this overseas.
Yeah, and so the lie again is not that any of these things are impossible or not something that you should do. The lie is that this is just this easy thing that you can just jump off the couch and do. And so our goal again with this channel is to show you what we're doing, the complete process, start to finish.
Right, including all of the boring red tape and the paperwork, not just the dreamy apartment tours, though I'm absolutely guilty of looking at all of the real estate abroad, but I have to scale back.
Yeah, or cafes.
Yeah.
But we will take you through how we choose a country, the criteria that we're putting into it, the researching the type of visa that we would qualify for, calculating money, putting in the plan for everything that will hopefully not put any issues or things that go off track along the way. But
I mean, that's inevitable, but yeah.
Probably several things that go off the rails along the way.
Yeah, so in our next video, we're going to be talking about the criteria that we're using this time around to decide what actually suits us. Because last time we moved abroad, we basically said, who's going to hire us as a teacher? And we hopped on a plane with our dog, and we didn't have a whole lot more than that.
So,
yeah,
you know,
sorry, if you're also, sorry, I get excited about these things. Anyway,
it's okay.
If you're also trying to move abroad, figure it out like we are, without retiring, without marrying a European stranger or an Asian stranger who can help you gain citizenship, or pretending that your VPN makes you invisible.
Go ahead and like and subscribe to Beyond Tourism with Jesse and Frankie and follow along, because we're going to show you and hopefully help you figure out the visas, the money, working, family, pets, all that.
Yeah, and you'll be along for our journey too. But also let us know in the comments, what do you think is the biggest thing that's holding you back if you're interested in moving abroad? What it is. We're curious, because I'm sure we're asking the same questions on this end too.
Till next time.
Future neighbors.
Bye.